Hello, everyone. This is Under the Mayo. I'm back for another episode of Profiles in Gaming Enthusiasm, and I'm joined by my guest, Theo. Theo, how are you doing today?
Good under the Mayo. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. So, this is the first time that we've ever talked.
I know, which is kind of ironic because I've been following your YouTube channel for a very long time.
See, that's a surprise to me. I didn't know that you even knew who I was.
And
Um,
what's crazy about it is you were one of the few catalysts that got me into taking MK9 seriously with your Kenshi videos. So, small world.
that's yeah, that's crazy. I did not know that. I really didn't. I only known you through, the old like Injustice streams and tournaments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Actually, we um, for those of you who are listening who don't know, Theo, could you, I guess, just give a little background of, I guess, how you're known in the gaming scene, or like tournaments, and I'm mostly covering, I guess, Injustice and I guess like the glory days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a professional fighting game player or, used to be a professional fighting game player. And the games that I was mostly known for were both Injustice One and Injustice Two. I um I started fighting games seriously around the time of Mortal Kombat 9, but that was kind of late into the game's life. So I started actually like traveling and doing pretty good at tournaments come Injustice One, and that kind of followed through with Injustice Two, with a little bit of MK11 peppered in there. But as we all know, then COVID happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
So did you get top eight at Evo in Injustice One?
Yeah, so I got top eight at Evo twice in Injustice 1 in 2013 and then 2014, and
Okay.
then again in Injustice 2 in 2017.
Okay, great. I don't remember that tournament at all. I know I I know I watched it, but I don't remember anything about it. I think I just remember like a couple of the final matches in top eight. Did
Well,
you play
good.
Aquaman in both games?
So I used Superman in the first Injustice tournament. That was back when Superman was just absolutely busted, and
Yes.
I was definitely taking advantage of that in the first one. But in the second Injustice tournament, I was mostly using, or excuse me, in the second Injustice One Evo, I was mostly using Aquaman. Um, and
Right.
then,
No, everyone remembers that.
yeah, the Trident
Yeah.
rushes, the
Oh wow.
yelling when he does the Trident rushes. Yeah, Aquaman was kind of a beast in Injustice One,
Yeah,
and
you had like a run of terror for like half a year in
yeah,
tournaments where it just felt like no one could take you down. It was obscene.
yeah, man, and it was actually kind of a what was kind of crazy about that is a lot of people kind of expected me to get to top three or top two in the second Injustice One Evo tournament. Like everyone kind of had it in their heads that okay, it had to be like a Theo, Sonic Fox, and Jupiter. Like
Jupiter,
top,
right? Yeah.
yeah, like a
I
Theo.
remember the hype building up to Evo with those names being thrown around. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then what was crazy is that the two people that I lost to in that tournaments were considered upsets, even though they were both tremendous players that basically outplayed the shit out of me. In the winners bracket, I lost to newbie before top eight, and
Newbie's good.
yeah, dude, and it
Yeah.
wasn't even, and it wasn't even like like he just made the craziest comeback on me. Like that match was off stream, but like what happened was I was up 1-0 against him, and it was all going great. And in the second game, like he was basically at like 5% health and I was at like 80% health, and he just made a series of reads and just came back against me. And then off to the losers bracket I went, and then in top eight I got upset by MIT
Mm.
um, with Deathstroke, and he just like completely just dismantled me in top eight. So it was definitely like it was definitely an unexpected exit for me, even though the players that I lost to were absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Uh, is there an archived match out there that you would recommend for viewers to go watch to see how you were playing back then? Like a match that you're particularly proud of, or a match that's like really nail biting?
Yeah, that is a really good question because it's kind of tough to recommend as well because Aquaman admittedly isn't the most interesting character to watch because his game plan is basically just walk back, wait for the opponent to do something, play a very passive and lame style. So it's very
If he gets hit, trigger the trait and get
yeah,
out.
exactly. Just slip out of there. But one series that I'm really proud of that I think is a real nail biter is me versus White Boy at West Coast Warzone 2014. This was after Evo.
All right.
He beat me pretty bad in winners finals, but then I came back in grand finals and I beat him. But it was an insanely competitive, just like down to the wire grand finals that I would say is a lot more of an aggressive game on both our parts. So I was definitely like playing a lot more fast and aggressively, not in the typical Aquaman style. So that's definitely a matchup I'd recommend to be like, hey, Aquaman's not always boring. Like, here's an example of when it's actually kind of interesting to watch.
Because he was using Doomsday, right?
Yeah, he was using.
Okay, then yeah, there are no boring matches versus Doomsday. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter what character you're using.
and
Uh,
newbie beat me with Doomsday at Evo. So like going into that tournament, like just Doomsday as a character was definitely one of my demons at the time.
hmm. So that would be Theo versus White Boy, BOI, right? Wasn't
Yeah,
it? Isn't
BOI.
that yeah
Uh-huh.
yeah at you said West Coast Warzone,
Yeah, West Coast
2014.
Warzone. Mm-hmm.
Cool,
2014.
yeah. Oh yeah, if you guys want to check that out, see what that's all about. I mean, I was never the biggest fan of Injustice, but I always watched the tournaments and just
Mm-hmm.
the competitive level and the local scene rivalry was always so fun. Every Thursday night, I'd get off work and I would pick up dinner and come home
Mm-hmm.
and tune in to the GGA stream for the Thursday night Injustice weekly tournament. I was always there, always watching, and I did that for a year, 2 years. Even
Mm-hmm.
though I wasn't playing the game anymore, I just loved following the scene. I guess mostly because of the personalities and it wasn't a game that I enjoyed playing very much, but I really like watching high level Injustice play.
Yeah, man, Injustice was really interesting, and I'm actually glad you like brought up that you're not a fan of it specifically because it's something that I would find very understandable. Because the thing about Injustice is that like just to give like a comparison, it's like the polar opposite of like MKX, for example. Injustice is the kind of game, both the first one and the second one, where there's all these character archetypes, all these different styles, but like at the end of the day, the optimal way to play it is by just walking back and playing lame and letting the opponent
Yeah.
hang themselves. And I feel
Hmm.
like when you have a game where, for the most part, the dominant style is playing lame, like there's always going to be a subset of people that just don't find that interesting. And I mean that's fine. Like that's something that I think just boils down to subjective preference. But then it's like something like MKX, for example, which is a game that I do like quite a lot casually. It's basically the opposite of that, where the optimal style is aggressive, fast paced, quick, and then there's always going to be a subset of people that just don't like that style either. So, Injustice is definitely that kind of game where, it's such a polarizing game playstyle wise, where
Yeah,
like it's always
it's very polarizing.
yeah, definitely. Where it's always going to divide the fan base in terms of what you like in terms of having fun in a fighting game.
It always came down. It came down for me to the walk speed
Hmm.
and the massive distance between characters.
Yeah, yeah, for
It's
sure.
just like it felt like it was a whole other TV screen of distance between the characters on these huge stages too. And I like just like one thing. I mean, you're chasing someone across the screen, and then your character has an air dash, so they just go over to the other side. And I, I'm a Catwoman player,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I was a decent Catwoman player. I mean, I'm more of a tech guy, but
Hmm.
I could hold my own in a local tournament.
Yeah.
And I remember going to a national tournament and doing some casuals in the hotel and fighting against a friend of mine who played Shazam,
Yeah.
and he just teleported back the whole time
Oh, dude, yeah, Shazam.
against Catwoman. And like, and what am I gonna do as Catwoman?
Yeah, and that's the
I,
thing. I'm glad you brought up that matchup because like Shazam wasn't like the highest tier character, but like
right.
when you put it in the context of like Shazam versus Catwoman, like his teleport specifically against someone like Catwoman, just like you said, what are you gonna do?
I was just like forward dashing across the entire screen,
Uh-huh.
and then he would teleport away, and now I'm on the other side, and then I would just be forward dashing across the screen the other way, and then he would come in and command grab me.
Yeah,
And
and like,
I hated it so much. And after that tournament, I was like, I'm just done. I'm done playing this. And then my other friend played Green Arrow. So it was just that jump back, shoot arrow into the ground move all day. And the only thing I could do was maybe get a lucky jump in or a random EX cat dash, which is, a death sentence on block.
yeah,
And man, it's just like I loved the way that Catwoman played,
yeah.
but I didn't like the way the game played. I didn't like the game that she was in. And I feel the same way about Devora in MK11.
Hmm.
I don't particularly care for MK11's design as a game,
Hmm.
but I love Devora's gameplay.
Yeah,
She is super fun for me. I just wish that she was in a different game.
right. And like, there's another thing about Injustice One, since like you brought up both Shazam and Green Arrow, is that like in that game for the most part, invincibility on wake up was universal for the most
That was
part.
a Yeah, that was a big problem. That came after launch too, right? That was a response to people
Yeah,
not being able to wake up, and so they just gave everyone invincible frames on all their wake up attacks.
yeah, and like admittedly, it was kind of tricky to wake up like in vanilla. It's like there's this like specific window where it's like you have to time it really specifically.
Yeah.
Like it, yeah, it is kind of it was kind of annoying to input, but man, they just they were just like, all right, universal invincibility, and then just like,
And Catwoman still had no wake ups.
yeah, yeah, exactly, and then you knock someone like Shazam down, and you're just like, okay, his teleport's invincible, his command grab's
Yeah.
invincible, his torpedo's invincible, so no,
Bane on wake up. Like, come on.
dude, oh my god. Then, like you said, like Injustice One's storylines, just in terms of locals, tournaments, like top players, was so interesting and just so genuine and just so passionate that like it really, really carried the interest of that game for people who didn't, care so much about the gameplay itself.
Well, there was a redemption arc to that game because I mean,
Yeah.
the injustice in the first Evo was like one of the most humiliating moments of any fighting game ever, as
Oh yeah.
people were just booing in the grand finals, and rightfully so. I mean, that top eight was pretty bad,
It was bad.
and
Sorry,
I
guys.
mean,
It was bad.
the redeeming factor of the entire top eight was Chris G
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
playing Green
definitely.
Arrow.
Hmm.
And then after the game just continued to flounder. It got a balanced patch and it made things better. But it wasn't till NEC,
Hmm.
which is a major tournament that happens around December,
Yeah.
and there was like all these like rivalries and shit talk going on and drama in the scene, and like local scenes all taking their stuff seriously. And then NEC, it showed this huge jump in player skill, in
Mhm.
matchup knowledge, in balance changes, and that tournament it just breathed new life into the game, leading up to the tournaments that followed, like Frosty Faustings or what's the Tekken one? Or is that the
Um,
Tekken one? There's
oh,
another one in January.
KIT. KIT, yeah.
KIT was the hypest thing ever, right? And
Oh,
then like in those months, you started to see like the rise of 16 bits Catwoman, which
uh,
became just a terror across the entire country.
yeah, she was great. Yeah.
Learning like the specific frames to beat every character's invincible wake up options on knockdown. And it's like the things that they pulled off was just insane leading up to Evo, and the game was really hype. It was really fun for a while.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Most definitely.
Okay, here's the thing. Do you remember fighting me online? Injustice. You probably don't. I do because you were King Theo, right? And I wanted to get some matches,
Uh-huh.
and you fought me Superman versus Catwoman,
Oof. Must have
and
been
it
vanilla
was
Superman.
it was awful, and I lost 5-0, and then I got the GG message, and then you were gone. I was like, oh,
Oh
thanks,
god.
Theo.
Oh
And
god.
I remember how you started the first match, and this was 7 years ago. I remember you started the first online match against me. It was like round one, begin. You you've dashed in and you did down one scoop on block, and it hit me.
That was definitely the time where I was abusing Scoop. Yeah, that was definitely the time where I just got it into my head that you know what, Superman doesn't have any unreactable overhead, but you know what, this Scoop, it's totally a mix up. I'm gonna do it. No one's gonna expect it, and it's gonna hit. Until obviously people caught on to that, but yeah, in the beginning, that was definitely a very
I was so
totally.
mad.
And
And
the
you,
thing is, the net code for Injustice One was so bad that like it was just really bad input delay net code for
yeah.
context, where like probably even like dash up forward one versus scoop might have been a 50-50 online. Who the hell knows? Even though forward one is like 23 frames, but oh, input delay language, 23 frames is like 2 frames.
Oh God, I had a first to 10 online against Biohazard's Bane,
Mhm.
and and or no, was it Biohazard, or was it who was the Bane at GGA? Max.
Max, yeah.
Yeah, it was Max. It was Max, and of course Max played 16-bit every week.
Hmm.
So playing against my Catwoman online, it was awful. It was the worst experience of my life. That a first to 10 that just seemed to last for years against Bane.
Especially since Max got that experience every single week at
Yeah,
GGA.
yeah. I didn't stand a chance.
Yeah,
It
and there was
was, it
also
was
and there was also just like a very another thing about Injustice One, like just going back into the storylines, is that it's just such a wholesome and just inspirational thing to see, where like 16-bit would like sometimes she'd be able to overcome Max like once in a while at GGA against
yeah. Once every 3 weeks, every 6 weeks.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It was just one of those games where like when you see just overcoming tough matchups like that, it just, an extra level of hype. It kind of incentivizes just tuning into the tournaments. Like could this person overcome this 7-3 matchup like this one time? Like you just have to see for yourself.
It was rough. It was really rough.
Really, really rough.
So we started talking. What got us talking? It was like a week ago. Something about Silent Hill. What was it?
Yeah, I think I was just like mentioning just like some kind of Silent Hill moment that made me remember that game. It was that part where okay, so just as some context, I'm a Silent Hill guy, but I'm also one of those people that thinks Silent Hill 1 is just super underrated, and it kind of makes me a little salty when people talk about 2 and 3 but like don't mention 1, because I genuinely think people are, sleeping on Silent Hill 1 even though 2 and 3 are fantastic as well. It was that part in Silent Hill 1 where you first go to the hospital, and then your map has all these like rooms labeled like room 302, room 303, this room, that room. And you notice the autopsy room. And like in a horror game, the autopsy room is not going to be a good place to go to.
Sure.
But since you're not in the dark world, you can't access the autopsy room yet. Like it's that one room that's locked. As soon as you go into the dark room, or the dark world, excuse me, autopsy room is where you have to go to in the dark world. So already in your head, you're just like, oh my God, dark world, autopsy room. Like this is not going to be good. Like it's just example of just brilliant genius buildup in a horror game.
Yeah, Silent Hill 1. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't call it underrated. I think that it's regarded quite highly. I mean, if you I know that 2 definitely overshadows it
Yeah,
because
for
2 is I mean, Silent Hill 2 is Silent Hill 2, right? Like
yeah.
you can't take anything away from it. It earns its position. Silent Hill 1 is the more horrific of the series though. Like I think it's the scariest one. And maybe it's because of how alien the world was, or maybe it was the technology of the PlayStation 1,
Hmm.
but there's just something terrifying about being lost in that world, and it scared the hell out of me when I got it. I got the official PlayStation magazine that came with a demo disc, and it came with the first couple sections of Silent Hill, and I played it, and I was like, I have to have this.
Yeah.
And I went out and I got it, and I got it the day that it came out. I was already a huge Resident Evil fan,
Mhm.
and I got it, and that game just blew me away. I got so frustrated by one of the puzzles, by the Zodiac puzzle in the Nowhere world.
Mhm.
Me and my mom were sitting there for half an hour. We couldn't figure it out. I had to put the game down for a week because I was so angry. But then I came back and beat it, and got the bad ending. But then repeated it and got better at it and got all the endings, and I just fell in love with the game. And I mean, so I don't know about underrated because like if you look online and you find sometimes there will be channels that'll say top 10 horror games of all time
Yeah.
or top 10 scariest games of all time. A good number of them have Silent Hill 1 as their number one. I've seen it.
Yeah, I guess me saying underrated kind of would imply that maybe people just didn't like it as much as they should have. And like you said, that's not true because it was definitely a highly rated game at the time and even in retrospect. I guess it's just more so that like 2 is just so highly regarded and 3
Hmm.
as well to some
Yeah,
extent
and
that like
3. 3 is a good game.
yeah, for sure. That it kind of overshadows 1. Like man, 1 had some moments. 1 really had
It
some moments.
it did. One Silent Hill 1. I just replayed it about a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
I played through the whole trilogy
Yeah.
over the past year, just kind of as a refresher. And I have a 15-inch CRT TV in my room that I
Well,
hook my
you want the
PlayStation up
genuine
to,
experience.
and I hook the PlayStation 2 up to the TV, and I put it on a little foldable table, but I run the sound out to the surround sound stereo.
Mhm.
So that's like the perfect way to play Silent Hill, man. You get all the stereo fidelity of the sound, but then the image coming through the CRT monitor. Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I do have to ask because you said trilogy. What's
Hmm.
your thoughts on 4?
My thoughts on 4 is that it's like it's a Silent Hill game, but it's not a Silent Hill game. That's how
Yeah.
I feel about it. It's like half a Silent Hill game,
Hmm.
and I think that it is a decent game, but it's the one that made me want to play it the least. I played it all the way through, and then I
Hmm.
played it through again like halfway, and I was like, I think I've had enough. That's kind of how I feel about it. I
What's
don't hate it. I think it's fine,
yeah.
but Silent Hill is Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 to me, and then the rest of them. Well, I mean, 4 is kind of something I forget, and then the rest of them are ones that I wish I could forget.
Yeah, the Western one, which I haven't played, but haven't heard great things.
You haven't played any of the Western Silent Hill games?
No, I've just played the first 4, none of the Western ones.
I've played them all, man. They get progressively worse,
Mhm.
and I can honestly say that Silent Hill Downpour is was the most miserable gaming experience I had until I played Alien Isolation a couple months ago,
Oh,
and so that game held number one spot for a good 8 years. Silent Hill Downpour is awful, and I'm just glad that there's been no Silent Hill since because I know people got excited for PT and people have talked about a new Silent Hill coming back, and I'm just I just kind of wish that they would just leave it alone and just let Silent Hill be dead and let it be remembered for what it was.
It's pretty.
I don't know
So
how you
you
feel
don't
about
like
it.
it in isolation, huh?
I despise the game with all my heart.
That's a hot take, man.
Loathe it, loathe it.
That's a hot take, man.
I hated it so much the first night that because someone gifted it to me
Yeah.
because I'm a huge Alien fan and I love horror games,
Hmm.
and I played it for about 4 hours, and I hated it so much that I uninstalled it immediately. And then the next day I came back and I was like, okay, I should give this more of a chance. I installed it again. I went back through it, played it for another 4 hours, and I played more on stream. And I realized that I hated it so much that I needed to play it to the end so I could understand it. And then I did a 15-minute video of it. I'll send it to you. I'll see what you think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I could rant about that game for hours.
Do you
That
just
game.
conceptually not like the concept of like an enemy just randomly following you throughout like a game?
Oh no, I like that. I
Mhm.
like the concept of the game. I like it so much, and I love the atmosphere. I think they nailed the look of the ship and everything. Like everything looks really great.
Yeah.
The mood, the sound design is great. All the 70s aesthetic, perfect. Love it all. My problem comes from the actual gameplay, where that everything is bare bones. Like there's like very little depth to anything. There's no depth to the crafting system. There's no depth to the inventory management. There's no depth to the melee options. There's no depth to the stealth. I think the AI, especially in the humans, is really bad.
Mhm.
And I feel like the entire game, like 70% of it, is just figuring out how to open doors. And it's you got to open this door. Well, you can't open this door yet because you got to get a key card. Well, the key card's behind this door, and it requires you to get this thing. Okay, we got to get this thing, but first you have to input this passcode. And but there's no thought involved in the passcode. You just have to match the buttons you see on the screen. There's no penalty if you lose, so it's not actually gameplay. And it's just the whole thing is just taken up by mini games and prompts with no fail states and like mini games that are just like so basic in their design that like they would be embarrassing to give to a child.
Mhm.
And I was that I found unacceptable. I thought that as a game, its design was kind of insulting, and I was really upset with it because I wanted to play a good Alien game. I didn't enjoy a single moment of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I played it at launch and I just remembered liking it, but the thing is, I just don't remember that much of the game to be able to kind of discuss your points.
That takes us into another thing here. I would be interested what someone like you would think. Someone who played the game 6 years ago and remembers liking it, but doesn't like have the clearest memory of it.
Yeah.
I would love to see what your reaction to my video would be because this segues into God of War because
Oh yeah.
that's a similar thing that happens with my God of War review
Uh-huh.
where there's people who remember liking the game.
Mhm.
But I mean, of course, I get plenty of hate comments on. I attacked one of the most popular games of all time. That's going to happen.
It's bound to
But
happen.
there's
Yeah, for
but
sure.
there's always comments in there from people who are like, you know what? I loved this game, but as I was watching your video, I just kept nodding and along to every point you made because yeah, that was right. I just didn't think about it or I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you would have that reaction to my Alien Isolation video.
I would definitely have to play it again, and I was definitely planning on it. I feel like once I play it again, I will definitely have a lot of juice to squeeze after I watch.
We'll play it before you watch my video because after you watch my video, you won't be able to play it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I usually I don't go in hard on games because usually if I don't like something, I just usually just don't like it.
Yeah.
Like I have nothing but like a burning hatred for Alien Isolation,
Oh my
and
god.
it comes through. It comes through in once you hit about the 15-minute mark on that
Yeah.
video. It's pure hate. But yeah, so we started messaging each other after we both talked a little bit about Silent Hill in a Twitter post,
Yeah.
and I think I messaged you and I was like, hey, would you ever want to come on my interview series? And you were like, well, yeah, like I agree with your takes on God of War and Resident Evil 3. And I was like, really? Okay, well, that sounds like a fun conversation. So let's get into that, Theo.
Of course. And I have to give a lot of context because God of War means so much to me, like in terms of
Mm-hmm.
as a series. So I think I need to
It's so good.
Yeah. I think I just need to start with my feelings about the series as a whole.
Please do.
Yeah. So
And it's sorry guys listening. It's storming outside, so you might pick up rain on my mic.
right on. So 1, 2, and 3, in my opinion, are pretty lateral in quality. Where like I love both of them. Like I mean both of them. I love all three of them. All three are just fantastic games to me. I think that like if I were to put one over the other, or like two over the other, or three over the other, like it's not like it's just gonna be so minor in like my tier list for the first three that I like to consider them like kind of lateral in you know
They're
their
hard
play.
to compare in a way because, like, I always say that my favorite is two. Two to me feels like the most complete game and the biggest step up. Like the jump in quality from one to two was huge.
Yeah,
It
so
really was.
yeah, one's boss fights were definitely lacking, and that's a very, very common complaint about one. Even though I
Mm-hmm.
think the Hydra boss fight and the Minotaur boss fight were really well done, and Ares was
Yeah.
kind of weird, but like he wasn't
Well,
terrible.
Ares was good, but what made Ares so good was how emotionally resonant it was
Yeah,
to what was happening.
yeah, especially that like Kratos doppelganger fight
Yeah,
eating it.
it was so good. And but yeah, there were only three boss fights.
Yeah, and two, like I said, I just love all three of them so much that like when you say two is your favorite, I'm just like I get that, man. Like two is definitely the longest out of all of them, has the most boss fights out of all of them, introduced more weapons than two.
The
Or
Chronos orbs, I love the
yeah,
Chronos orbs.
yeah, definitely. Like in God of War 1, you only had two weapons, even though I love the Blade of Artemis.
Mm.
I mean, the ending was a cliffhanger, like in two, and that I guess was kind of blue bally in a way. But I feel like we were all at the time just so confident that the third one was going to come out that like I don't think, at least I didn't mind it as much because like
Oh yeah, no, it felt earned because like the game's length, the game's like momentum, like you get that big fight with Zeus, and then what happens to Athena. Like
Mhm.
it feels like it concludes, but also ends on a cliffhanger. To
Yeah,
where when it ended, I wasn't like, oh wait, what? No, I was just like, yeah, bring on part three.
yeah, and like the game was so just critically acclaimed and it sold so great that it's one of those things where we're just like, okay, there has to be a third one. So like,
Yeah.
like it's gonna come out. We're gonna get our satisfaction at the end. Kind of
Mm.
segues to the third game. Like third is my favorite, even though like I just need to reiterate that like they're all just on such a level ground for me. Just because like the graphics, like I don't know how they got those graphics to run on a PS3 because
I don't know either.
that game passes as a PS4 game, my guy. It really does.
The Kratos model is shockingly good.
Yeah, the boss fights in it were just like the Poseidon boss fight. The
Hades, man, the
Hades was
Hades boss fight.
so good. The Zeus final boss fight was great.
Hmm.
Um, like them trying to pull off like a Kronos fight, I thought was pretty cool.
That
Um,
was good. They really pulled that off.
yeah, they did. They did. It's so hard to do like David and Goliath style boss fights in games because
Yeah.
oftentimes it just boils down to like slash at the legs or something like that. But I
You
think
mean
they
you
got
mean
really
like the dragon in God of War 2018?
yes. We'll get to that.
We'll get
We'll
there.
get to that. And I mean the PSP games are great. Played
Yep.
both of them. Remember really enjoying them. Like they're welcome to stay with the pantheon of the epic trilogy. Ascension, I'm kind of conflicted on Ascension because again, like the graphics were fantastic. The gameplay was all there. I wasn't a huge fan of them like going the elemental route with the weapon variety because if I remember correctly, like you don't get different weapons necessarily, you just get like different elements for your weapon, and that just like completely changes the properties of them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't even remember. I don't remember.
Oh, how fitting. And like another thing about Ascension is that like after how epic 3 was, them like kind of going back to a prequel and like just not having an interesting enough setting and characters to follow up 3
Yeah.
was, I guess, one of the reasons that Ascension was just stuck in the trilogy shadow. Like the timing of the game and its story probably wasn't the best.
Yeah, it just didn't resonate. It's people like to say it's terrible. It's not. It's not
No.
a terrible game. It's the combat, like the blades parry, like the core combat of God of War was perfected in Ascension. It is super good. It is so solid and satisfying. It's just that the setting and the story in the world that it's in is not very satisfying.
Yeah, and then like I said, I just don't remember. Like I don't think you get different weapons per se. Like the Hercules gauntlets, which I loved, or the Blade of Artemis.
Hmm.
But like you get like electric blades of chaos, and now like
Man, I don't even
water.
remember.
Yeah, and like I remember it changing like the properties of your blades, but it didn't give that gratifying feeling of a new weapon. Like I don't know, man.
Sure.
And then comes God of War 4.
Yes, it did come.
It did. It came, and we were all very excited for it. But I mean, okay,
I
I feel like I'm just like the way I'm prefacing it. It makes it sound like I hate the game. I don't like. I don't hate the game. It's there. I think it's like a solid like 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah, it's
just
a 7 out of 10.
yeah, I'm just so puzzled at like how much critical acclaim it got at the time. I mean, I get it. Like, games are subjective. Like, your enjoyment of a game is subjective. Like, if you love the game, like, all the power to you. Like, God of War 4, in my opinion, it did some things right. Like, first off, the graphics were out of this fucking world, man. Like, again, how they got that to run on the PS4 without it exploding my console, I don't know. Like, God of War 4's visuals to me are just like the peak of console visuals. Like
Well, I'll
that's
tell you how they got it to run. They got it to run by having a super tight camera behind him to restrict your field of view so the system doesn't have to load the assets.
oh, we're gonna get to that. We're definitely gonna get to that for sure. And I like I like the story overall. Like I don't mind them going the direction they did with Kratos, making him like this relatable hairy dad character, even though that's very cliche in games nowadays. But what kind of bothers me, which is not a fault of the game itself, is how a lot of game journalists completely undermined the depth of the trilogy's version of Kratos.
It was infuriating.
Yeah.
Infuriating.
Yes,
So
yes.
all this revisionist history.
Yeah, it's like it just thought that like Sony Santa Monica felt that trilogy Kratos was just one note, one dimensional character, but now he's like this deep like character in God of War 4. And look, that's not to say that the trilogy story was perfect. Like it wasn't. Like there were definitely some moments like in 3 where like they might have gone too far in exemplifying Kratos' anger and vengeance. Like
I
one
agree.
yeah, like one moment in 3 was I think when you use Poseidon's daughter as a puzzle and you like crush her under that gear.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those moments that was really disturbing for me to watch and I'm just like, "All right guys, get it. Kratos is he's angry. He's lost all sense of morale. You don't got to
Yeah.
rub it in our faces." But again, like he was a really I mean, you can probably talk about this better than I could how like trilogy Kratos wasn't one note.
No, he definitely was. I mean, like this idea that the new Kratos is the more complex character, like I find his delivery to be pretty one note. in the new game. He's somber, he's
Mhm.
quiet, he's serious, and then sometimes he's angry.
Yeah.
And when I look at just the first God of War game, there's so much more to him, in the backstory about how his thirst for blood serving under Ares leads him to killing his family, and the remorse he feels, and there's the game ends with you hugging your family to transfer your health to them.
Yeah, man.
Like, you can't tell me that this character had no depth and that he was just one note. I mean, by the end, oh sure, by the end of the third game, he had gotten kind of to a comical anger point, but there was still a lot more going on, especially in the PSP games as well,
Oh yeah.
dealing with the ghost of his daughter and everything. He was a more complex character, and it just really upset me that not just journalists, but it just seemed like
Yeah.
everyone was, even God of War fans were saying, yeah, this is a much better, much deeper version of Kratos. I was like, I find him kind of boring this time. Yeah, and they changed the voice actor too. So I mean, is this even, like, did they even want to make a God of War game?
Apparently they did that because they wanted Christopher Judge to both do the vocap and the voice acting as well, and I think it might have been too difficult to do with TC Carson. I don't know if that's like the actual reason. I just saw that on a headline once, but that's
Yeah. Well, I
the
mean, he's got a good voice for old
Mhm.
Kratos, but I find his delivery to be a bit oversimplified.
That was
Kind of like everything else in the gameplay. There's a segue for you.
and
Let's get to the combat. All right.
yeah.
So
Let's get
not only are people saying that this Kratos is a huge improvement over the boring Kratos of past, but now the combat system is so much better, and now it's not just a button masher. That made me so angry.
oh my god. Tell me, okay, just like anyone, don't even play the trilogy or the PSP games on Titan. Play it on hard. If you can actually button mash on hard on anything that's not like a cookie cutter enemy, like you're lying. Like,
Yeah. Oh, no, of course.
like if you're not strategically parrying, strategically rolling, thoughtfully using your magic and weapons, like in hard mode and Titan mode, like you're lying. Like
And
on
if you
the
don't maintain your combo meter, then you're missing out on important XP gains to unlock more powers.
oh yeah, for sure. The thing about God of War 4's combat is that again, I don't think it's bad per se because I
No, it's not. There's plenty of options to do cool things.
yeah,
It's there.
but it's just such a step down from the original because one the camera placement in my opinion is just catastrophically annoying. I hate that
Really bad.
yeah, it's up Kratos' ass. Like the only way you can gauge at what's behind you is from Mimir telling you or the arrows or Atreus telling you. Um
Well, I mean, I can't hear Atreus because I turned the dialogue down.
fair enough. Um what else is there?
Well, like the camera, the thing is, you control. I made this point in my video.
Yeah.
Kratos controls like characters do in third-person shooters.
Yeah.
It's like you're playing Gears of War,
Yeah,
but
that's a
with
good way
God
to
of
put
but
it.
with God of War. The camera's right there behind you, and you have to manually turn your character left and right for them to attack in those directions.
Yeah, definitely.
And that works fine when you're in corridors. It doesn't work when you're standing in the middle of a big circular arena, and half the enemies are behind you, and you can't see what they're doing. And when they're going to attack you, it's like, okay, but what attack are they doing? What am I reacting to?
Yeah.
Am I reacting to someone coming in with a hammer? Am I reacting to someone who is coming in with an unblockable attack? Do I need to roll, or can I turn around and parry? I don't know because I can't see them. And that was just such a bad call to me.
For real. And So I thought the combat overall was okay, but two things
It's
that I
okay.
thought, yeah, it's okay. It's there. Like it's tolerable. The two things that I thought were absolutely not okay was one, the enemy variety and the interestingness of the enemies, which I thought
Yeah.
for the most part were really boring. Worst of all, and again, this is a very common complaint, is the boss variety. Or
The
in this
boss
case,
variety.
what boss variety? Like troll reskin,
Yeah.
and then a dragon and Magni and Mopti tossed in there.
Yeah. And that's it. And people will say, well, the Valkyries, they're optional fights that you're gonna do after you beat the game.
Yeah.
Like they don't count. They're as connected to they're as connected to Kratos as the dragon is, which is not at all.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I don't like the dragon fight. Like it's like, oh, now you have to fight this dragon. Okay, but why? Like the Hydra in the first God of War, like that was a mission that Kratos was sent on. A mission that Kratos wants to complete because he's trying to finish his years of service to the gods to get redemption.
Yeah.
Like that's actually connected to the story of Kratos. But the dragon fight is, oh, well, there's a dragon there and your son wants to save the dwarf guy, so we got to kill the dragon now. It's like, God, really? Is this the best we can do? And then you get to what's his name? What's the main boss guy? What's the bad guy?
Boulder.
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 Yeah. And if you're playing the game, like the first time you play the game and you meet him in the first hour, that first encounter is just really bad. And after that, you go through the next fights and you go exploring. You're probably not just going to go straight to the mountain, right? You're going to go sailing around and look at this place.
Now
So you're going to spend 10 or 15 hours just doing stuff until you finally get to the point where you fight him again, right? When you fall and you land on his dragon, you have that fight on the dragon, and you're like, oh wow, the first boss fight. And it's not a boss fight. It's just you just press the R1 button and Kratos automatically punches him and then you turn the stick left and right. And that's it. Like I don't know how that gets the okay to be in the game. I don't know how you can make that your first boss fight in 20 hours.
Now you're preaching to the choir, but I did think the first fight with Baldur was kind of sick, but that's because there was a little bit of mystery to it. What I didn't think was sick was what you basically just said, which again I'm completely agreeing with you. And especially disappointing was that Baldur was the final boss. And like
Yeah.
even though the setting you fight him in is kind of different, for the most part, his moveset is kind of the same. Minus the
Yeah.
interference that Freya, has on you guys.
I really didn't enjoy fighting him because I didn't care about him. I'm like, why am I fighting this guy? This guy seems to have a much bigger problem with his mom than he does me.
Yeah.
And so I'm there. I'm fighting him at the end of the game. I'm like, what am I even doing? Why am I involved in this conflict? There's that part in my video where I show Kratos saying, "They do not concern us." I'm like, well, yeah, that's like the whole game. Like
Yeah,
Kratos doesn't give a fuck about what he's doing. He's just trying to get to the mountain and wants people to leave him alone. And he's just in fights because people are like, they're just obstacles. And there's no actual connection or feeling as to what I'm trying to accomplish. That's how I felt about it anyway.
and and a little bit ago you said how the cliffhanger in God of War 2 was very earned because one, it was a very epic experience and it gave you a really epic Zeus boss fight. So you felt that the cliffhanger was earned because you're already pumped up and you already had a satisfying enough experience. But in the case of God of War 4, it went that save it for the sequel syndrome route, by keeping Odin in the next game most likely, but I did not feel it was earned at all because that the game just kept on jamming it into your head that Odin bad, Odin evil. Then we don't see him at the end because they're obviously saving it for the sequel. But like I felt that the journey of God of War 4 just wasn't varied or just like purposeful at all, that I didn't feel like that cliffhanger was earned like, at all. Like you couldn't have given just like a little taste of Odin, a little taste of Thor, like some no.
I think their vision for the game was too big for what they could actually do.
Yeah,
Right?
and at the same time, just I want to add this in there because they were insistent on going that one take route, that they wanted that whole game to be in one take, similar to like Half-Life 2, I guess. Probably didn't give enough room to give some more perspectives of what's going on in the world. It has to like strictly be in the perspective of Kratos and Atreus at that time, you know?
Yeah, that's true. What do you say to people who say that the combat system in God of War is a lot more intricate and interesting than the originals? What's your response to that? I have a response. I want to know what you say.
I'm probably not as confrontational as a person to kind of say the more juicy answer. I'll just kind of like very passively and calmly say, I don't know about that. You know, the trailer
Okay.
was so amazing, but you know what I mean on the inside.
I don't know about that. Walk back, Trident Rush.
Yeah. Yeah. Passive play, passive confrontation. Exactly.
Now I know why you played Superman and Aquaman. You don't like confrontation.
Exactly. I don't like that rush down and honorable fighting shit.
Oh man.
Come on, tell me what I'm thinking on this. Just say it. Like
it's been like since I put out that video, like I've talked to a lot of people about this and read a lot of the comments. I mean, that's why I'm doing a follow up, because I'm inspired to go in deep on some of these topics and to really kind of explain where I'm coming from here.
yeah.
And saying that the combat in the new God of War isn't as interesting as the original is not about saying that there aren't a lot of interesting options, because there are many interesting options that you can do.
Never did we say the combat was bad.
Yeah. And the problem is that there's no in-game reason to use them. And I think the original God of War did a very good job of incentivizing player creativity, which is why I frequently compare the old God of War games with Doom Eternal. Because Doom Eternal incentivizes you to use everything in your disposal, and especially in the early game, because they're betting that if they get you to do these things in the early game, that it'll become instinctual. And that in the later game, when you don't necessarily have to be doing all that fancy stuff, you're going to want to anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the whole philosophy behind it. And the old God of War games work that way. If you played them on the easy difficulty, sure, you could just do square, square, triangle. Of course, yeah. But the thing is, you can do that in the new God of War as well.
Yeah.
If you play it on normal, you can just mash light attack and mash magic and get through everything. So we can't just say, we can't say it for one, because it's got to be true for all of them. And it is true for all of them. But where they differed was on the higher difficulty levels, because you want those upgrades. You want to unlock more abilities for your blades and for your magic. And the way that you got them was through smart combat. It was through getting the strategic, brutal kills. It was through making sure that you never get hit and always parrying so you can continue your offense and launch a light enemy into the air, jump up, do a spinning combo attack while you're safe and you don't get hit, and then you go down and then you hit a magic attack so you don't get hit out of the animation, and you keep the combo going. And the more you play like that, the more orbs you get, which means that you can upgrade your stuff faster, which you need to do on the higher difficulty levels. I mean, would you agree?
I would definitely agree. Yeah.
That's the whole idea behind the combat system. And in the new God of War, what they did is they took the idea of, okay, we'll let you unlock a whole bunch of interesting and cool attacks, just like the originals, but we're not really going to give you a way to control your progression. And that means that if you walk into a fight and let's say you have two options. Option A is you parry every attack, you keep your offense going, you do a lot like multi-hit, like you do that like stance switch move where it like spins the axe around and it does a whole lot of multi-hits and you get a whole bunch of combos going and you never stop and you never get hit. You have that as option A. And then option B is run in there, spam all your magic, spam your heavy attacks, and just do the most boring heavy attacks and kill everything as fast as possible. What's the difference? There is no difference because the XP that you gain is the same. There's no way to control your XP through combat. So what's the incentive to get good at all the flashy stuff, which is riskier to do? The first game balanced this by making the flashy options really risky to use because you could get hit when you were doing them. But if you got good at them, the reward was you got XP. So you were encouraged to play in fun ways. But in the new game, it's just like, just do the boring, dumb option because why do the flashy one? Because it could get you killed. And there's no reward for doing it.
Sorry to cut you off. I just have to ask, did you play it on Give Me God of War or the one below that?
I played it on Give Me a Challenge first, right? And then I sold the game within 5 days. And I wanted it to go away. And then 9 months later, I was like, I feel like I have to talk about God of War. It's still bugging me. And so I got the game back. I bought it again. And then I played it through again on Give Me a Challenge. And then I played it again. And then I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready for my review. But then I was making my review and I was at like page 17 of my script. And I was like, you know what? There's going to be some prick in my comments section saying, well, hey, if you didn't play it on Give Me God of War, then you have no right to critique the combat. So I was like, I'm going to do it on Give Me God of War. And so I did that. And the first hours of Give Me God of War are miserable.
Oh my God, I was going to tell you. Okay, so like I love me hard games.
Me too, dude. I love dying like 40 times in a room. I don't mind that at all, right? Yeah. I love it.
Ninja Gaiden, Souls games, like
Doom.
Yeah, Doom, etc., etc. But the problem with Gimme, and I'm sure you were just gonna say it, the problem with Gimme God of War is that opening hours just makes it seem like it's gonna be so boring and miserable because every enemy is a fucking sponge. And they do that thing where like if you don't kill them in time, I think they turn like blue or powered up, and then they don't.
They regenerate their health.
They regenerate your health, then and they don't like react to your attacks, right, or something like that. If I remember correctly,
you can't stun them anymore. Yeah, and I don't think you can even launch them.
Yeah, and everyone says that the game gets easier once you upgrade, and I'm sure that's true. But like the first few hours are just so awful that's like one of those.
Did you make it through?
No, I tried it twice and I just flushed it both times. Like,
no, I can't blame you. I tried it once before I sold it, and I was like, oh fuck this. But I knew I had to do it, right? I was like, I have to do this if I'm going to make this video.
Yeah.
And yeah, the first hours are so bad because there's no interesting options. All you have is light, heavy. You have the light magic attack, and you have parry and dodge. And these enemies take so long to kill that there's nothing fun to do.
Yeah.
It's not like the old games where you could, because when you start one of the old God of War games, right off the bat, you have light, you have heavy, you have the light heavy smashing combo, you have the full 6-hit heavy combo, you have the heavy air juggle, you have heavy air launcher, you have You have 3 different grounded grabs. You have a ground to air grab and an air to air grab.
Yeah.
All from the first level.
Mm-hmm.
And then this game gives you light, heavy, and nothing else. And you're in room after room of just like really boring enemies with way too much HP. And it's so tedious. It's such a slog. And then once you get, but the thing is, once you get Atreus's shock arrows, the game's broken anyway. And it just turns into the same broken mess that the other difficulties is. It's only hard in the first areas, and then it just becomes the same mash fest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I played it through on Give Me God of War, and then I played it another time on Give Me God of War on New Game Plus, because I had to see what that was about too. And New Game Plus is better, at least.
It lets you do New Game Plus. It lets you do Give Me God of War New Game Plus if you beat it on Give Me a Challenge.
Yeah, you can just go straight into Give Me God of War on New Game Plus, I believe.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and it's a better experience. The enemies have more attacks. Like the guys in the very beginning have like ground blast fire projectiles, and like the enemies have more attacks. You start with all of your leveled up armor. The Valkyries have like new AI patterns and new attacks.
Jesus Christ, they're hard already though.
Yeah, well, but yeah, they were hard, but not when you get to the end of the game and you've completely broken Kratos through the RPG system.
Yeah.
You just you just destroy all of them, but you can't do that in New Game Plus, and that was nice, right? Mm-hmm. But it's too little, too late by that point. And going back to the combat incentive, I just feel like my next video is going to address the question of why they did this. Like, why would you remove the relation between how well you're performing in combat with how you're leveling up your weapons? Why would you take it out? I mean, it's not like it saves you on development time, right? It's just a combat counter. It's just a combo counter, right? It's just making sure that your offense is going, and if you do really well, you get XP rewards. Like, why would they take it out at all? And I'm going to get into that kind of stuff because it ties into why they took out jumping and all that kind of stuff. Because dude, we could go on for another hour about this. Like, there's so much to talk about with God of War.
There is.
The puzzles.
I didn't mind the puzzles as much, but I did think they weren't as interesting as the puzzles in the older games, just because they weren't as varied.
What puzzles? Can you name 3 puzzles?
Oh God. The first one that I remember is like that one where Kratos has to like throw his axe through like a bunch of branches or whatever. And then Atreus kept on saying, like, you're not going to figure it out. And Kratos is like, I'll figure it out.
That's a puzzle? What? Are you really calling that a puzzle?
I'm reaching, man.
Okay. We'll say that's one. What's another puzzle?
One where Kratos is like getting choked by those tendrils and is making Atreus do those thingamajigs with the cogs, whatever. You call that a puzzle?
Okay. Maybe.
I'd say that's a puzzle.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we have 1.5. We'll settle on 1.5 puzzles.
Do you count carrying the blue crystals as a puzzle?
I don't even remember the
you know, in the Alfheim or wherever it is, the Dark Elves world, where you have to carry the blue crystals and then shoot Atreus's blue arrows at them to create the light pathways.
I actually don't remember that part, and I remember
you're lucky.
Pretty well. Yeah,
you're lucky. Those were terrible. And then the rest of the puzzles are find the thing and throw your axe at it.
Yeah, which I wouldn't even consider those puzzles. It's more just like literally find the thing.
Yeah, it's not a puzzle. It's where's Waldo? There, there it is. I throw my axe at it now.
I just
Jesus Christ. And and the thing is, how can you have good puzzles in a God of War game if you can't jump?
can't.
You can't, right? So it just you're grounded. So all you can do is like move something around or throw your axe at something.
I feel like that's not to say that you can't have good puzzles in any game that you can't jump, but like,
Oh sure, Silent Hill.
yeah,
Silent Hill had like riddles and stuff like that. Of course you can, but like in a God of War game,
yeah,
uh, like in a game that had so many puzzles that revolved around your mobility
hmm
and your all your different abilities that you had. Now you're stripped of it all, and now you running around for 40 hours and you're throwing your axe at vases from beginning to end.
I love how you said bases because that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically,
You wanna? I mean, we could go on this forever. But if we keep talking about it, I'm gonna spoil way too much of my next video. But my video is gonna go in. I'm gonna focus on three things. I'm gonna talk about the combat. I'm gonna talk about the platforming and the puzzles, and how they're all connected, and why all of them are the way they are. And so that I think people are going to enjoy that video. You also mentioned Resident Evil 3 remake.
I'm a big Resident Evil fan to begin with, so
Hell yeah.
Resident Evil 3 just hit me harder by the fact that I was just so disappointed by it. And like,
Really?
yeah, just to like go into it real quickly, just my feelings on the mainline games. Remake, one of my favorite games of all time, but like that's kind of easy target for just like what is the best Resident Evil game? That one, you know.
Yeah, like I said in my video, it's like people can have their differing opinions on all the different Resident Evil games,
Mm-hmm.
but we can all kind of come together and say, but you know, the GameCube one,
Yeah.
that's Resident Evil.
Oh yeah. RE2 for the PS1, fantastic. But again, that's like
Mhm.
kind of just an easy answer. RE3 for the PS1, I personally loved it. I thought it was would say I enjoyed it as much as RE2 on the PS1, even though they're pretty different structurally. Um, Code Veronica, I loved, and I've played through it like 2 or 3 times. But what's interesting, have you played Code Veronica?
That's the one I didn't play because I didn't have a Dreamcast.
Oh my god.
Oddly enough, I a friend of mine recently donated me his PlayStation 2 and a whole bunch of games,
Huh?
so I have it. I have the PS2 version.
Play it when
I
you
haven't I haven't opened it yet, but I'm dying to get to it.
definitely get to it. I really want to know your thoughts, and like I really be interested in you making a video on that in the future, because it's one of those games where critically it's a darling, like an absolute darling, and I love it. But a lot of prolific YouTubers are very lukewarm to it. Like, you know Sphere Hunter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a very big Resident Evil fan, and that's one of the ones that like she wasn't too keen on, along with a lot of others. So I'm
All
really
right.
interested to know what you think about it because you're someone who's not afraid of going against the popular opinion on something.
Right, and I would be coming to it as an RE fan who is playing it for their first time.
Oh yeah, yeah, most definitely. You're not blinded by nostalgia goggles like I am because I played it way back when, around the time it first came out.
All right.
RE4 is like my favorite game of all time, even though I know that it was like the beginning point of kind of the fan base being divided since they went in a little bit more of an actiony direction. What are your thoughts on RE4?
I loved RE4 when it came out. I played the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I haven't played it since then, and I'm kind of afraid to.
It's my
Uh,
favorite game of all time. Like I just
yeah.
okay, I have to say one thing about it. So a lot of the fans who are kind of detractors of RE4 say that it was the reason why RE as a series went in its slump with like RE5 and RE6 kind of going off the rails. But I feel like it's not as much of RE4 being the cause of that, more so that the main creators of RE weren't involved in the other titles, like Shinji Mikami or Hideki Kamiya. I think
Okay.
I think it might have been just more of an indictment on like you know uh, the big directors not being involved in 5 and 6, and that's why they kind of are a lot different.
Yeah, that's certainly gonna cause problems by not having someone with like a good vision in
Yeah.
charge. I just finished an interview last week with Pessimism, the world record holder for Resident Evil speedruns,
Yeah.
and we talked a lot about this. And I don't think I don't think that you can like entirely blame Resident Evil 4 for the games going in the wrong direction, because the games had already been going in a stupid direction for a long time. I mean, Resident Evil 2 is just like a big silly action movie. It's not the creepy horror experience of the lone mansion in the forest.
Yeah,
It
there's
was,
more
and
elements in it, but like yeah, like you said, there's silly moments in it.
yeah, and Claire is like shit talking Mr. X like right to his face, and
Hmm.
I mean, it's dumb. And then Resident Evil Nemesis is all even bigger and crazier and dumber.
People
And
not
so
remember like you playing as Carlos and just mowing down a horde of zombies with your assault
yeah,
rifle.
it was already going dumb. It's just that Resident Evil 4 took it to that extra step of now the zombies drop money and ammo,
Yeah,
and and you've got like giant statue mechs that are chasing you as you're mashing A to run away. It it seemed to cross the line. You know what I mean?
I do think
Uh,
that 4 still had horror elements and horror moments in it, though.
it did in the village. Until you get to Salazar's castle.
Hmm.
That's when it turns into an amusement park, and it's just silly for most of it afterwards, except for those gladiator things. Those things are really scary.
Gladiators. I
Uh,
think the first time going through that sewer with the
yeah, the sewer. Yeah,
the bugs that could go invisible, those were scary.
hmm
What are they called?
the caves. The caves were good too. I I started feeling weird about Resident Evil with Resident Evil Zero,
Oh my
when
God,
you had, which is a game I really liked playing. I love the character swap system. Um, I love the locations. I love the train. I love the house. I love going down into the laboratory of Resident Evil 2 before it happens. That stuff is great. Um,
I
but it was the guy who's singing opera to with a psychic connection to leeches. That's when I was like, this is not Resident Evil anymore. This is some kind of supernatural tale that is not connected to an evil corporation doing experiments with a virus. And that's when it went off the rails for me. And then Resident Evil 4 came after that.
But the thing is, I could tolerate like the silliness of the singing opera dude. What I couldn't tolerate about RE0 was the fact that like if we say it's a 7-hour game, 3 hours of that are just you being stuck on your inventory screen doing like endless inventory management because there's no goddamn item boxes in that game.
That's
Like
right. I forgot about
alleviate that
that.
issue. Like
Yeah.
when you first pick up the game, you think, wow, it's awesome that you can drop and pick up your items wherever you go. But then that issue sticks out like a sore thumb, excuse me, when you have to like transport items from like one area to the next, and you have to make like 5 different trips, like getting your
Yeah.
items, going to the next area, coming back, getting the others because they just removed item boxes for some reason.
Yeah, that was right. I didn't remember that. It's been 20 years. Sorry.
I
I
mean,
haven't played it.
oh no, I totally get it. But like that's another game where maybe you should try again. I would say you'll
Yeah, I
definitely
should.
enjoy everything you said about like the RE2 lab and the train. But I guarantee you'll hate the inventory management way more than the singing opera guy.
I should go back and play it. Yeah. So Resident Evil 3 remake.
Yes. Sorry for the
No, no. This is this kind of stuff I want. I want this kind of backstory.
yeah.
So yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I want to hear. I want to hear about how you feel about the series because that gives context to how you reacted to the remake.
Yeah.
When did you have reservations about the game before it came out, or were you really excited and you went in, you played it, and then you were like, "Oh my god, what happened?"
Here's the thing. I should have had reservations because it coming out like a year after RE2 was a bit suspect in and of itself. The fact
Indeed.
that like had a lot of different designers working on it from as opposed to RE2 and RE7. Like the thing is that this was during Capcom's redemption arc. Like RE7, in my opinion, was a banger. RE2 remake, in my opinion, was a banger.
Devil May Cry.
Devil May Cry 5, I have some issues with, but I overall liked it, and I totally understand people who love it. So I will put that in the banger category. Mega Man 11, I thought was a pretty cool return to form for Mega Man. Monster Hunter World, people like, so that's awesome. So yeah, like because Capcom was just on fire and like they were in, like I said, what I called the redemption arc. I was like, okay, it's coming a year after RE2, but there's no way this could be disappointing, right? Right?
Right.
And then, yeah, I played it, and again, this is kind of, I guess, beating a dead horse in terms of what people don't like about the game, but like, I did my best to all my exploration done, do as much of the side stuff as I possibly could, and game took me like 4.5 hours to beat, where like 20 minutes of that was me being AFK without pausing the game because I had to, you know, do a chore real quick. Um, and
When did it hit you? Like when you were playing it, when did you get that feeling?
the first part that really rubbed me the wrong way was the lack of a clock tower, along
Oh,
with the
okay.
fact
That far in, huh?
not just that far in. Like that was the major thing. The
Okay.
second thing was Nemesis taking on his, penultimate form too early. Where I'm just like,
Mhm.
okay, I didn't see a lot of, Nemesis that really scares me or is not, scripted. Now all of a sudden we're in Nemesis's like, second to last form or whatever. Like now we know for sure that we're not going to see a lot of Nemesis throughout the whole game. And then yeah, that's where everything kind of went off the handle for me.
Why did he mutate?
Sorry.
Why did he mutate?
Um, because he couldn't swim. So he just
I guess, right? Because in the original, like he gets damaged and he starts deforming in the clock tower fight
yeah.
when his coat starts coming off and then some of the tentacles start coming out.
And now here's
Uh,
and here's the thing,
and
man,
but
because
yeah,
I know you said that like that was the moment where I really didn't like the game because in your video you had issues with the scriptedness of the first sequence. Now here's the thing,
mhm.
I agree with you. That rubbed me the wrong way too. But at that point, I kind of let it slide because I thought that there was a lot more game in store for me, like as I kept
Sure.
playing. But
Sure,
then,
I was the same way. I didn't notice it as much until I started getting until Nemesis became totally on the rails,
exactly,
and
exactly,
then I had to go back and play the game again.
exactly. So then, like I said, when I'm just like, okay, Nemesis is close to his final form, and we barely saw him. That's when I
Mhm.
was like, oh my god, like since we barely saw Nemesis, all we did see of him was his presence in that Raccoon City area, which was a lot.
You mean in the square,
Yeah,
in the little
in
big square?
the compromised version of RE3's.
Oh my god, what a small city!
Yeah,
Raccoon City sucks.
real. And
It's
also,
just two streets.
yeah, like, can we talk about how? Okay, before we get to that, I thought the hospital section with Carlos was kind of cool.
Good. I
Yeah,
like the hospital section of the game.
yeah, because it had that like feeling of you're in this like mansion-ish, even though it's a hospital, but like I'm saying mansionish in terms of the Resident Evil structure of an area, and you're kind of
Yeah,
like,
labyrinthian.
yeah, and you're kind of like peeling the onion down. You're unlocking rooms you're supposed to go to. It's dark. It's foreboding. Then we get a tower defense segment at the end, and that kind of
Oh,
like leaves a bitter taste in your mouth.
yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so when we had the hospital section, I almost forgive the game for like not giving us the clock tower. Then the problem was we didn't get the dead factory afterwards. What we got was a reskin of Nest from RE2. Like, you agree that's what it was, a reskin, right?
It's what it felt like. Yeah, it felt like the same kind of place.
Yeah, it really felt like the same kind of place. Um and yeah, I think that the game did a few things all right. Like obviously the RE engine
Sure.
always looks fantastic. I think that
Yeah, the gunplay feels good.
yeah, even though I think they toned down the gore a little bit for some reason. I don't know why.
I'm pretty sure it's because they increased the number of zombies on screen and they had to do that for RAM reasons or something.
That makes sense.
That's why you don't have like hanging limbs from their arms. Their arms just disappear because there's already so much going on screen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I liked Carlos. I think his personality was really
Yeah.
funny. Thought it was kind of whack that like you go to RE2. What am I saying? You go to the police station as Carlos. Um,
What a huge missed opportunity that whole thing.
yeah. It's not so much
He has no connection to that place.
exactly. It's not so much that I had an issue with Carlos being there. They could have made that work. But the problem is it had no like had very little continuity to Raccoon City that you're in. The original RE3, like the RPD was connected to Raccoon City, so there was a lot of continuity to you going there and having Nemesis chase you there. But now it's just kind of there, and that takes up 45 minutes of the game, and you realize just how much lack of content there is.
There was a part in my video where I said that I imagined that Nemesis was going to break through that wall, right?
I know which wall you're talking about.
All thinking that for a year that was a hole from Nemesis.
Yep.
And then I thought that right before you hit the C4, they're going to subvert your expectations, and he's going to come through, and this is going to be a top tier scare.
Yep.
And no, he just blew up the wall, and you shot more zombies. And I had people who were like, why would you want Nemesis to break through the wall here? It wouldn't make any sense for him to attack Carlos. And I'm like, okay, first of all, that's not the point. I'm not talking about what makes sense. I'm talking about the lack of interesting moments and the fact that this is like what we wanted was Nemesis in the police station, and we didn't get it. But the thing is, he attacks Carlos in the original game. And you know why? Because he wants Jill. And so you easily could have done that in the remake. You could have found a way in the story to where Nemesis doesn't know where Jill is, but he knows where Carlos is. And so he goes to the police station and he is attacking Carlos because he wants to know where Jill is. And then he breaks through the wall. You could have easily made it make sense to have that part of the game. And I never understood why people were upset that I was suggesting that because it wouldn't make sense to attack Carlos. I was like, well, then make it make sense, man. Put that in the story because it happened in the original.
And
I'm getting worked up.
And okay, the apologists of RE3 also say,
there are many.
Well, the PS1 RE3 also took like 5 hours, but here's my rebuttal to that. Yeah, like both games probably take a similar amount of time to complete, but the thing is, in the original RE3, like almost all of those 5 hours are gameplay. Almost all those 5 hours are like, continuity and interesting environments and unscripted sequences. Whereas in the RE3 remake, it's like 5 hours, but you have a lot of scripted segments. You have an RPD, which they clearly put very little effort in, so it just feels like going through the same area. And then again,
there's no exploration in anywhere of the game.
Yeah, and then you have Nest 2, which, like I said, is like a reskin of Nest 1, I'm getting worked up too.
Dude, I knew something was wrong when the trailer dropped. that first trailer was so weird. It just felt really strange, I thought, and I was like, something's not right about this game. And like, when Jill was like driving her car into Nemesis, I was like, what's going on here?
Remember
And
when they
yep,
let
sure
that note?
enough.
Oh, I need to talk about. I need to mention this. You remember that one quote unquote puzzle where you have to like guide the train with that map?
You mean the puzzle where you press the number that it tells you to press?
Yes, but not so it's not the puzzle itself that I have a problem with. It's the fact that that was tease number one. One of the locations on that was the clock tower, St. Michael's
Yeah.
clock tower. So you're just like, oh my God, like maybe we're gonna get to the clock tower. That was tease one. Tease two. So that's already in your head that St. Michael's clock tower is mentioned. And you go out of that at that like underground place. See the clock
Mm-hmm.
tower from a distance. Find that note, which is an advertisement of the clock tower. They're like, oh my God, it's happening. And then
Yeah.
no clock tower.
No clock tower.
No clock tower.
Just a giant wolf nemesis for no reason because he fell in the river and now he's a giant monster.
Got upset when Jill said, bitch can't even swim, where he's like, all right, here's my next
God.
form, buddy.
Wait, okay. There's a question. Do you think she said bitch can't even swim? Is that what you think she said?
That's what I interpreted the first time.
Because yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that she said that. I don't think she said that. I think she said bet you can't even swim.
I had subtitles on, so like I feel like I have to um I had subtitles on and I could have sworn the subtitle said bitch.
Did
Like,
it?
did you play
God,
the subtitles?
that's awful. No, I didn't. I didn't play the subtitles.
Okay, because I think that's what my subtitles said. But again, I've only played through the game once, so like I can't be.
Maybe I just didn't want to believe it that she would say bitch can't even swim. I like that's so bad, man. It's so I just can't believe it. I was like, no, because betcha can't even swim. That's a completely believable thing for her to say.
But it's not like cussing is beneath her. I mean, in RE1, she said,
I know, but I just think she said betcha can't even swim, and people thought she said bitch. That's just what I've always thought.
"Hmm,
And I would go check the subtitles, but you couldn't pay me to reinstall that game on
yeah,
my computer.
are you sold?"
I'm not going to check, so I'm just going to believe that until I go to the grave,
Fair enough.
because I don't want to believe that she said bitch can't even swim to Nemesis. That is, dude, the things that she says in that game,
Hmm.
suck it, and just like, oh God, man.
Do you know why
Yeah.
RE3 was the way it was, Mayo? I'm like
Why?
99% sure why. RE7 and RE2 Remake are the product of Capcom saying, we need to save our company. We need a great game so our company doesn't go irrelevant. Like the suits got together and said, all right, guys, like the act is up. Like our company's going under. Save this franchise or else. That's why those games ended up being so good. RE3 was the suits coming together again saying, all right, we made our money. You know, we're back on top. We're
We got this
complacent.
engine, all these assets.
Yep, exactly. We're complacent now. Just phone in another game, you know, like we're good. Similar to like Nintendo, when they make a lot of money, then you mysteriously see all their like great games being more few and far between once they make their money. Are you a Nintendo guy? Like, do you
I'm not. I had a Nintendo. That's what I had. I had the
NES?
Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh my God.
I didn't have a Super Nintendo. I didn't have a 64. My friend had the Super, so we would be playing Genesis at my house and then Super at his house, and then PlayStation at my house. We do Resident Evil and Twisted Metal, and then we go down to his house and play Super Mario 64.
Gotcha.
But I didn't actually own the consoles, and I've never been a Nintendo kid. I don't really have much like affinity for Mario. Not a Zelda fan in the slightest.
Yeah, me
Don't
neither.
I don't like Smash Brothers. The Nintendo, I guess, style just doesn't really appeal to me. I'm sure they're great games,
Yeah.
right? They're just not my thing.
Then I guess to add more context to my analogy, like in case your viewers are like, wait, why did he all of a sudden just compare Resident Evil to Nintendo? I always say that like when Nintendo has a fire lit under their ass and they need to like save their company ASAP, like you see them create games like Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, which is to compensate for Wii U failing. Or like when the GameCube sales were kind of poor, you see them create games like Twilight Princess and Super Mario Galaxy to compensate for that. Then you notice once Nintendo like makes their money and then gets complacent, you see there's
A bunch of garbage comes out.
yeah, it's like they still makes a few great exclusives and then they still have a few like really good third party games on their consoles, but it's just much more spread out because, they made their money. And you can see this on the Switch nowadays. Like I said, Odyssey and Breath of the Wild was Nintendo being like, we need to save our company, the Wii U failed. But then now when you look at the Switch, there's a lot more ports on it and a lot of the first party goodness while it's there, it's, more spaced out.
That seems to be the story of Nintendo for, like, God, 15 years now.
Yeah, man.
I remember the first Wii when it came out, and everyone was like, this is a revolution," and like, this game just came out and it looks better on PlayStation 3, but it's more fun on Wii. But within a year and a half, like everyone's Wii was just like it just had a box of fries on it and a Coke can.
Yeah,
Like, oh wait, all the games are gone. Shit, and you can't play BioShock on this.
yeah,
And like, no publisher could put out any game on the Wii because it wasn't strong enough. And like, uh-oh.
yeah. I
And
mean,
then they put out the Wii U to try to compensate, but it was too late.
the Wii's like, yeah, to preface, like I love the Wii. Like it's my GameCube machine till I die, and I love
Hmm.
Super Mario Galaxy and No More Heroes till the day I die. But yeah, like you said, the library for it while it was there, it definitely wasn't as deep as the PS3 or 360. You definitely had to like look a little harder to find those hidden gems and whatnot. Just the Wii U's marketing made no fucking sense. Like, why? First of all, why would you call it the Wii U? I swear to God, for like the first year or two of that console's launch, I just assumed that it was like a peripheral for the Wii, just because their advertising for it was just so damn unclear.
Yeah, it's pretty unclear.
Yeah, it was.
It you know what else confuses me? Oh, what Xbox has been doing. I don't understand. Like, I don't play Xbox, but all I hear is like Xbox, Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox X, Xbox One X, and I don't know what any of these things are. I don't know what the difference is, and I there's PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro. I got it. I understand exactly what that means,
Mm-hmm.
and all these Xbox. Wait, what is there? There's like a Xbox One S and an Xbox One X, and then there's an Xbox Series S. Is that the new one?
Yeah, so
What? How did this make it through testing?
I'm guessing they just like because Xbox 360 was just so like different in terms of name from just the regular Xbox. I guess the I don't know, the writers were just like, I don't know if they're called writers, whatever they're called. They're like, well, fuck, we can't just say Xbox 3 now because that's just kind of weird in terms of continuity from the 360.
Yeah,
So
it's
what do
got
we
to be a
do?
different name now.
Yeah, it's got to be something sillier. It's kind of funny that I said they can't say Xbox 3, even though they said Xbox One. Something.
Yeah, they did say Xbox One.
Yeah.
Fuck it, we'll just call it One.
You got to give them credit though. Like, um, even though Xbox One's first party offerings are much more shallow than PlayStation's, and that's putting it lightly, they're really on it when it comes to backwards compatibility. And I know you
Yes,
said
they are.
yeah, and I know you said you're not an Xbox guy, but like, man, like you have 3 different generations on one console.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Well, on PC too.
Yeah, on PC too with the crossplay and stuff, and the fact that Microsoft, owns both
Yeah.
PC and Xbox.
No, they're hitting it out of the park right now.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens in the next year in the console wars. I mean, I don't play in the console wars. I will get a PlayStation 5 when the next God of War comes out.
Fair enough.
That kind of brings us full circle.
I know it does.
I'm going to make this our last topic because we've been going for quite a while.
Yeah.
What do you want to see in the next God of War?
Here's the thing about it. Like, I'm still super excited for the next God of War regardless, because again, like, that company has obviously hit way more often than it missed.
Mm-hmm. And the sequel's going to be better.
Yeah, I trust that the sequel's going to be better. And like, look, man, if they want to keep that same combat system, fine, let bygones be bygones. I just asked for 3 things. 1, zoom that goddamn fucking camera out. I assume that they're going to do that.
Because, here.
Yeah, that's a very common criticism. 2, give me some more goddamn bosses. Or not more, but more variety of bosses. And 3, just make the enemies themselves more interesting. Like, I didn't think the Draugrs and the bandits were interesting. Like, to me,
Sure.
They seem like your typical, like, AAA bandits, basically. You know how it is in a lot of AAA games where you gotta clear out the bandit camps. What's the side mission? Clear out the bandit camps. Like, 2 locations are spread 20 miles apart. What's in between it? A bunch of bandit camps. Like,
Yeah.
that's the vibe I got from the God of War enemies, and there were a few cool ones. I thought the elves were kind of cool in Elfheim, even though I was kind of disappointed that the boss in that area was just a bigger version of the elves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should definitely look a little bit more deeper in Norse mythology when it comes to the enemies and the bosses.
They don't. Yeah, I don't know how much more creativity they have in the well, because I mean, Greek mythology has so many cool monsters to pick from.
Yeah.
I want to see true jumping. I want to see jumping. It doesn't have to be a double jump. It just has to be the ability to jump and climb things.
Yeah. So it can give verticality to the levels, right?
Yes, I want like actual exploration and air options in combat. That's a big one. That one will automatically create better puzzles.
Yeah.
So I don't need to say I want better puzzles. Better puzzles will come automatically if you're able to jump. And the second thing I want is a streamlined gear system, because I'm not going to ask them to take out the gear specking system, because I know they won't do that. I mean, I don't really want it, but it is what it is. But I don't want to have 100 different wrist pieces to choose from that all have different stats. I hate that. I hate that I'll stop in the middle of the game and I got to look through all these different armor pieces to see which one goes with which, and I'll spend 20 minutes in the menu when I'm playing God of War.
Yeah, but then the game journalists are going to dock points saying that it's a step back from God of War 4 and that it's more.
God. Well, they can say what they want. And then the last one, the most important, is performance-based XP. That's what I want.
Yeah, for sure.
If I am doing the really cool stuff that's risky and takes more skill and talent and reactions to do, then I should earn my upgrades faster.
Yeah.
Right? That's the way it should be, and there's no reason for it not to be that way.
Yep.
And because the only reason for it not to be there is so that the worst players in the world don't have to feel bad that they can't level things up as fast as everyone else, right? And that's no way to balance your combat system.
And you can argue that the lack of verticality in the combat is what compromises performance-based XP, because it doesn't kind of limits the amount of variety in the combat. And of course that's not to say that the combat in God of War 4 doesn't have variety.
Yeah, it totally does. It
Yeah,
may even have more variety, right? But the thing is, it's just kind of there.
yeah,
It's there if you want to learn how to make stylish videos for YouTube.
yeah. I saw this one guy. He's known for doing like no hit fights against like Souls enemies,
Yeah.
Souls bosses. Excuse me. He did one against the final Valkyrie boss, Sigrun. It
Yeah.
was like this no hit, gimme God of War like fight, and he really took advantage of just all the variety God of War 4 has to offer. Like he really,
Hmm.
really, really pushed the game's combat engine to the limit. It was definitely art in motion.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that people, when they hear me criticizing the combat system for being boring, I think that they think of stuff like that and they're like, "Oh, well, you need to see this guy play." I was like, that's not my point. My point isn't that the stuff isn't there. It's that the game doesn't incentivize creativity. It incentivizes the dumbest, simplest power attacks to
Yeah.
get through everything as quickly as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's not even any consequence to playing badly, because you'll remember this, that in the old God of War games, if you got hit a whole bunch of times, not only did you not get high combos to get orbs, but you also left that fight seriously injured.
Yeah.
And if there's not a life chest from here to the next room, you're going into the next room severely handicapped. And now you have to play like your life depends on it. And if you get hit once or twice, it's over. And like if you died and respawned, it would give you like 2% more health.
Yeah.
Like if you died 30 times, you'd be back to full health. But and that was a good way to balance it. But like it meant that you actually had to be careful about what you're doing for multiple reasons. One, you want to not get hit so you keep your combos going, but also you don't want to get hit because you don't want to be in a bad spot in the next room in case there's no health pickup. But in the new game, you just walk to the next room with no life, die, and you respawn and your health comes back to 100. It's there's no consequence for playing the game badly. The game doesn't even let you play it badly because you can't jump and you can't fall. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. I'm spoiling my next video.
I guess one thing that I do want to leave on just talking about, you know, on the topic of hack and slash is even though I'm a little bit more lukewarm to the Devil May Cry series as a whole, like I have some issues with the series. I think that like Devil May Cry 1 deserves so much credit for just revolutionizing the idea of hey, character action games aren't just about slashing your sword. It's about slashing your
Yeah.
sword and being stylish as fuck and being flashy
Mhm.
as fuck and being rewarded for that. Like that is a norm that it forced in the industry that is just objectively good and objectively something that like should be in almost every character action game. And it really makes me salty just as much as you that God of War 4 didn't have something like that.
Yeah. When they so easily could have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they're like, "Oh, we don't have the budget to have a performance-based XP system." Like it was a decision they made.
Yeah.
Well, changing topic a little bit, I know there's one thing that we definitely agree on in a positive way, and that is Doom Eternal.
Oh yeah.
I would really like to know, give me a brief breakdown of your history with the Doom series, and what was your hype going into Doom Eternal, and how is your playing experience? How much time do you have in the game? All that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So, like with most people, my history with the Doom series started with Doom 1 on the PC. Played that game so much back then. Kind of like a lot of people, I have very fond memories of it. I'm sure if I would play Doom 1 and I guess Doom 2 today, I'm sure like the gunplay and just the, retro charm of it will be all there.
Yeah, it is. It's still fun to play.
Yeah, for sure. But I do think that maybe the, I guess, plainish, kind of corridory, mazy level design might stick out a little bit. That's also just because of how much the series improved on just like level design and verticality with the Doom 2016 and Eternal. Before we get to that, I also have fond memories of Doom 3. So I played it when it
Okay.
first came out on the PC back in 2004. And I liked the direction that they went in. I thought it was, really scary, really, I guess, scary back in the time when I was a kid. Um, yeah, I feel like I have fond memories of Doom 3. But what's kind of funny about it is I then played the BFG edition on the PS3 of many years later. I heard that's like the inferior way to play it because I heard that the graphical changes they did to it compromised a lot of the atmosphere. Are you able to
I've
comment
heard it.
on
I've
that?
heard that stuff too.
Yeah.
I didn't play that version. I only played the PC version. I built a computer for Doom 3 when it came out. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a tradition now. I built another one for Eternal.
Mm. And yeah, like let alone the fact that having your flashlight and your having your flashlight on your gun at all times, even though it's definitely a convenience, I guess it kind of makes the game less scary in a way. Just
Well,
having
John Carmack says that that having the flashlight separate from the gun wasn't an intention of the gameplay. That they had to do it because when they were using the light, it just stressed the engine so much that they were trying to minimize how much you were lighting up the game.
I didn't know that. I thought
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't that way intentionally.
I thought they
They
just made
had
up
to do it that
that.
way.
Oh my god! Even for the PC, like it would just stress out.
Yeah, like it was like the engine was that like advanced for the time that like it was just like barely holding together when it was under the stress of being illuminated by all that real-time lighting.
So just
And
think
that
about
if you had the light on at all times, the engine wouldn't be able to handle it.
So just think about the fact that a year later they then got to run that monster of a game on the Xbox with some
Yep.
compromises, but for the most part, it was all there.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they needed another year to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely,
And then Doom 3 could have been a different game on launch.
totally, totally. Yeah, like I like Doom 3. Like my opinions about that are pretty standard. Now, Doom 2016 was just so freaking unexpected because obviously, like Doom 4 was in development hell, basically. Like it was I'm sure a lot of people were worried that it might have taken the Duke Nukem Forever route where like just been delayed and delayed and delayed for so long that it just ends up being half baked. But then the game
Hmm.
came out and we just got the exact opposite of that. We got a game that like not only was just so up to date in basically norms and just like current game design, just had so much respect for the past games and its like atmosphere and its enemy design and just overall tone.
It took everything that modern games were doing right,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the other stuff that they were doing wrong, and it just threw it in the trash.
Yeah, yeah,
It
exactly.
was great.
Yeah, like I guess just let me be more specific. It's not that they were abiding by all the norms of current game design at the time. They took the good parts of it, like the
Yeah.
movement, the gunplay, the verticality. They just
Yeah,
took all
the gun upgrading system, being able to like improve the size of your explosions on the grenades, like the modifications.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That was good.
And yeah, I've played through Doom 2016 once, but I just have fond memories of it like I do with
Oh,
all the
only once. I have. If I tally up computer and PlayStation, I probably have close to 800 hours
Jeez,
in the single player campaign only.
jeez.
I've never played the multiplayer,
Oh my god. I heard the
not even
multiplayer for
Snap Map.
2016 was kind of underwhelming, even though like
There are people who love it and there are people who feel that way. I mean, in the Doom community, I know a lot of people who like were huge fans of it. So
about it.
I don't know. I didn't try it. I didn't care. I just wanted to kill the demons.
Yeah, fair enough. Doom Eternal, now we're getting into the meat of it. I fucking love that game so much. So just not talking about the absolutely cocaine combat. One thing that I really appreciate that Doom Eternal did was I feel like they went above and beyond in environmental variety. The fact
Mm-hmm.
that like Doom 2016 for the most part was just lab and hell, which I don't have a problem with. Like I don't think every game has to have um different colored environments or just like very varied environments. Like some games stick to one aesthetic and do really well, like Bloodborne, for example.
Sure.
But
Well, Metal Gear Solid,
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
you're on the base the whole time, basically.
Yeah, essentially, and they get it right. Like you can stick to one aesthetic and then get it right as long as you put a lot of effort in that one aesthetic, like our Bloodborns and our Doom 2016s and our Metal Gear Solid. But when a game goes above and beyond in variety, makes it make sense in the context of the game, and makes it beautiful, that's when you have Doom Eternal. Even though you don't need every single game to have different environments, I think when a game puts a lot of effort in just like varied environments with like different tones, different colors, different feels, and they get it right, that's when you have something like Doom Eternal, and they really knocked it out of the park in that aspect.
See, uh, I like to hear that because in the, I guess, in the hardcore Doom community, you get a lot more detractors, a lot of people who don't like the look of the game. They don't like uh, the look of all the variety of levels. Like they prefer the 2016 laboratory hell, everything is dark and gritty look.
Yeah.
I like that game. I like the way it looks, but I prefer the more fantastical nature and variety of Doom Eternal. I also think that it complements the gameplay. But whenever I talk to someone on the outside, right, someone like yourself or someone like friends of mine that I've introduced to the series, they always come down on your side of they love that there's a lot more variety, more interesting worlds to see.
Definitely. And it just helps, I guess, with remembering the game more in retrospect. Now, even though I played Doom 2016 4 years ago, and again, like I said, I remember the game very fondly, I just have a very hard time remembering levels themselves. I remember the combat and the experience as a whole more so than individual parts. But like with Doom Eternal, again, even though it came out more recently, I can so easily remember like the environments in that game much more easily than Doom 2016 because again, everything felt so distinct, like tonally,
Yeah.
in like just colors. Like there's a hell area, there's like this purgatory kind of area. What was that area called?
Necroval.
Yeah, that one. Then of course you had your lab, you had your little hub. Like it's makes makes it so you remember the parts much more better as opposed to just remembering the experience as a whole, but not so much the parts.
Yeah, you could take someone who played the game once
Mhm.
and then show them a screenshot from each level, and they would go, "I remember that level."
Exactly, exactly.
And I think that's pretty cool.
hmm
You got a favorite weapon?
I'd say probably the chain gun because I love the upgrade where you get the shield. Like to me, that upgrade just came in so fucking clutch during Ultra Violence. Because again,
Hmm.
I unfortunately only played the game once, only because I didn't have time to go through it again. But
That's too
Ultra Violence,
bad. That's a game that opens up on a second playthrough.
sure, and I definitely will get back to it in a second playthrough without a doubt. Like on Ultra Violence, like that's basically a difficulty where you have to play the fast paced style that Doom Eternal wants you to play as.
Yeah,
And I think just like that upgrade on Ultra Violence really goes hand in hand and just getting you out of hot water. Like
it's a good panic button.
yeah,
It
exactly.
really is.
Panic button. Yeah.
Yeah. So is your next playthrough going to be on Nightmare?
Yeah, definitely on Nightmare. Definitely on
Are you
Nightmare.
playing console or PC?
Unfortunately, console.
That is that's a capital U, unfortunately, when it comes to Doom Eternal, man, because of all the weapon switching.
Yeah, the problem is I have a gaming laptop from 2017, and even though it's a very laptop and running games around that time and prior to 2017. As you probably know, with a lot of gaming laptops, it's very or it's not future proof in that you can't just easily switch the graphic cards and whatever to keep it.
Well, where's that Evo Top 8 money, man? Get yourself a new laptop.
That Injustice 1 Evo Top 8 money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the Injustice 2 Top 8 money was a little bit more lucrative, but definitely still not enough to easily get me a beast of a rig, you know?
3 years later.
Yeah, exactly. 3 years later. Bunch of bills later, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was just gonna say that, like, but yeah, man, like the pace of Doom Eternal, something that I know divided the fan base a little bit. I freaking loved it. I loved having to always like stay on the move, have to use every weapon, every tool at my disposal, like instinctually. I freaking loved it, and I thought it made the game a lot more dynamic than Doom 2016.
Oh, it's like by far more dynamic. It's not, you know, connecting it to, this is why I always talk about God of War, because the game doesn't just give you a whole bunch of options. It actually gives you like real reasons to use each option. You want to, right? And there's a real reward for doing it as well, whether that's better ammo management or staying alive or being able to use weapons in certain ways to unlock upgrades. And there's just or using them in a way that increases your mobility. There's just so many good reasons to use all the tools that you have.
Oh yeah,
and they're fun. It's fun to use it too.
it's fun to use it too. Like no encounter feels the same. Like even when you die, like your repeat playthrough doesn't feel the same. Like it's not like you die, lose like 5 minutes of progress and you're like, okay, I have to go through the same boring motion again. It's no, like this is a completely different encounter the second time.
Yeah, like you're gonna die in a different way this time.
Exactly. Like I died to the Icon of Sin like on Ultraviolence like say 10 times in total. Like wasn't the easiest fight. Yeah, each death and each bullshit reason I died was the last.
Oh man, I hate getting sniped across the arena by a pain elemental. That's just the worst.
Real and funny enough, since we're talking about the enemies we hate, I didn't mind the Marauders as much, man. I thought they were a nice little change of pace in terms of like fighting the enemies in that game. I liked that they forced you to adjust. You know?
And that's an opinion that I knew a lot of people that I bet that the majority of people had, and I felt that like they weren't being represented. I felt like there was like this circle of people out there that were stubborn about him or just like spreading misinformation and just had bad attitudes.
Yeah.
And they were the only voices out there, and they made it seem like everybody hated the Marauder. And I was like, there's no way. Like I didn't have a single issue with him. I mean, I got my ass kicked by him for like half an hour because I played it very stubborn.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I wasn't complaining during the process, right? I was just like, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna figure it out. And then I learned to really like the fight, like through the rest of my playthrough, and then on my second playthrough, and I was just so sure that there's got to be a lot of people out here that don't hate the Marauder, that actually like him. And maybe there's a good number of people out there who feel like they don't like him, but maybe if they change their perspective, they might actually find a way to like him. And that has been the most encouraging thing to come from that video, is the hundreds, maybe thousands of people I've heard from in the past 6 months that have either said, yeah, man, I loved this enemy when I first came to. I don't see what the big deal is. He's so fun. Or people who said, I hated this enemy at first, or I saw these reviews and I believe what they said, but after I saw your video, I started thinking about him differently, and now I love fighting him. And I was like, that's what makes me feel the best.
Mm-hmm. And that's a testament to the game design of like Doom Eternal, where like even in things that are seemingly bullshit at first, there's room for like encouragement and just like, you know, getting better and just like being on this ultimate high that you got better at this thing that was seemingly bullshit on the surface, like the Marauder, which we're talking about.
There's so much to talk about with Doom Eternal. We probably shouldn't go on too much about it because this is a channel that has already covered these topics to death.
We'd be up all night, just like
We'd be up all night.
exactly.
All right, well, Theo, this has been really cool. Like, we've known who each other is for 7 or 8 years, but we've never actually talked to each other. So I really appreciate you coming on my show, and I am still a bit starstruck that I'm talking to the one and only Theo, the Aquaman Superman player from the Injustice days. I don't know what I'm saying here. It's been an honor to actually talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind words and for having me. And it's really been an honor talking to you too, just because of how much I've on your channel and how much you've helped me out in leveling up my MK9 combos.
Man, it's so great to hear. I didn't even know you knew my channel, and then I found out you like my videos. So I was like, yes, we got to make this happen. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and I'll see you on a future episode.